Okay, we are live.
Okay. Give ourselves a couple of extra minutes here while the others navigate their way through to the call.
Here they come.
Okay, great.
Hello?
Hello, Terrence.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was delayed.
All right, looks like we've got everyone here, and considering the gravity of the situation that we're going to be covering it out, I wanted to make sure we had as many board members on as we possibly could. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all those that are watching online, and also to go ahead and open up the Board of Elections special call meeting of November 6, 2020. First item on the agenda, obviously, is consider the provisional and challenge ballots cast during the November 3rd, 2020 general election. I'd like to give the floor to Lynn and let her roll through this process, and then roll into Travis and what his responsibilities are. But if you could give us kind of a brief description of what we've got going on tonight, so that those that are watching will have a better understanding of what we're doing tonight. Lynn?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight, for our normal attendees to our certification meeting, you'll immediately know that tonight is a deviation from our normal procedure. Normally, what we're doing tonight, we do at the time of certifying. In an effort to go ahead and update our unofficial results with all the ballots that we have to count, we've scheduled the meeting tonight to have the board consider provisional ballots. Let's determine which ones we can count and which ones we will have to reject. And then tomorrow we'll go through, we have assembled our vote review panels and our absentee ballot slitting teams, our duplication teams, to get all these ballots in order and have them ready for us to tabulate tomorrow, so that we can in fact update our unofficial results. As we know, the results will be unofficial until such time as this board meets next Tuesday at 6 o'clock live in the commission chambers to certify its election results. And so that's just the general feel for how this process will flow. So for us here in Richmond County, it'll be a three-step process. We'll look at provisional ballots tonight. Tomorrow we'll count provisional ballots that we can and any military ballots that have been received. And then Tuesday we'll certify. There are just a couple of other things I'd like to share before we dive into the report, if it pleases the group.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just so you'll know, while the military ballots that were received are not provisional, they're regular military ballots received up until this Friday at 5. We have 45 of those that'll be added in. Also, another number that you might be interested in knowing is the number of ballots that we've had to reject because they were received too late, and that number is 90. That's what we have so far. Now that number will increase, for a week or 10 days after the election. We'll have ballots still coming in that will also be too late to count. So that number we will look to increase. The number, we had a number of absentee ballots that when they were deposited into our drop box were deposited without the outside envelope to identify the voter and with their signature on the back. So absent that envelope, it's impossible for us to validate. So those ballots had to be spoiled. And so there were 63 of those in total out of the, fortunately out of thousands and thousands that came in successfully, there were a handful that came in that fashion. So just to be clear, those ballots were included, they were sealed up in the privacy envelope, but the privacy envelope was then not sealed into the main envelope where the voter signs and fills out all their information to certify their ballot. We had in total 145 absentee ballots that had mismatched or missing signatures on them. All of those voters were contacted, most by letter, email, and or phone call, but certainly all by a letter at a minimum. And we're happy to say that 102 of those were able to be cured. So that's a really good number. We've gotten in many today, right up until 5 o'clock. The emails were coming in with those documents necessary to count those ballots. And so with that, Mr. Chair, that's, unless somebody has a question relevant to what we're doing tonight, or our process over the next few times we get together, I think we're ready to roll into the provisional ballot report.
Without objection,
No objection.
None.
roll.
So
All right.
Travis, you're on. Yep.
So you should have received an email with the list. I'm going to share my screen. So if you do not have it, and for those there will have it.
Let's see, Travis, excuse me, this is page 2 that's up now. Could we
All
get
right.
it back to page 1?
Yes, that would be good.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
There's page 1. So you'll see there with the document, as we've done before, we have them grouped by categories. So the first category we have are those voters who voted out of precinct. These would be
Yes.
voters that were or are registered in Richmond County. There were 127 voters that cast provisional ballots because they were not at their home precinct, and they either stated that they did not have time to get to their correct polling location, or they chose to cast a provisional ballot rather than to go to their home polling place. So
Mhm.
the recommendation with those 127, because they are registered and valid voters, is to duplicate their ballots. And by duplicating their ballots, what we're stating is they're only allowed to vote on candidates that they would have been able to vote on if they were at their home precinct, but they are given a ballot from another precinct because that is the only ballot that that precinct had. So what we do is we duplicate their ballot onto a ballot they would have received and only count the races that they are eligible to vote on
Mhm.
had they been at their home precinct. So the recommendation is to duplicate those ballots and then count the eligible races on those 127 ballots.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count the Group A 127 votes.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we count the votes that are in Group A. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Travis.
All right. Group B is classified as an other category. That is technically not a category that we always hear about, but it is one that the state has acknowledged because sometimes people vote provisional and you're really just not quite sure why. So there were 11 people that were actually at their correct polling place, but it appears that either the poll worker could not find their name on the poll pad, or there were other possible unknown errors. One error to note would be that on the poll pad, when they create a voter card for the voter, and then the voter goes to the BMD to cast their vote, and then the card, for whatever reason, either comes up as invalid or not functioning at that particular time, they will come back to the poll worker and state that the card did not work, and the poll worker would then need to re-encode the card. Sometimes that can be a difficult or complicated process of going through the different steps that is needed to remove that voted status on the poll pad. And unfortunately, if the worker is unable to remove that status, rather than manually creating a card, they in turn had the voter cast a provisional ballot instead. So there were 11 people that kind of fall into that category, and to no fault of their own, they should have been able to vote, and so therefore their provisional ballot therefore should count. So the recommendation is to count their provisional ballot.
Mr. Chairman, move to accept.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded that we accept the voters in Group B. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group C.
Group C, these are PR voters, which is, as you know, the PR voter is the voter whose voter registration was in question at the time that they voted. We would look them up to see if they were registered to vote and could not determine whether or not they were registered to vote. But they insisted that they did vote or did register in a timely manner. In the case of these 6 voters, they were actually voters who who voted during the advanced voting period. And as you know, the advanced voting period started, a week after the voter registration deadline. So we were still getting in voter registration applications. So for these 6 voters who voted during the advanced voting period, we had not actually received their application by the time they voted, but by election day, we were able to determine that yes, they had registered in a timely manner. It just had not been received by us by the time that they voted during advance. So for these 6 voters, the recommendation is to count their ballot because they were properly registered prior to the registration deadline.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count the 6 votes in Group C.
Second.
Second.
And properly moved and seconded that we count the voters in Group C. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Group D.
Group D, we had one voter that could possibly be considered an other, but we put them in the PR status. This voter was marked as voting absentee on the poll pad when he went to vote election day, and he stated that he believed that it was actually his father's ballot that was considered absentee received, and that he himself had not requested nor been issued an absentee ballot. And so taking the necessary time to investigate that, we did determine that it was actually his father's ballot that was received, and that the son had not been issued nor had he voted an absentee ballot. So the recommendation is to count his ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Move to count.
Move that this ballot be counted.
Okay.
I need a clarification.
Move to accept.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the voter in Group D. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group E.
F, I believe.
Uh,
No, we're E, sorry. This is another other category. We had one voter whose absentee ballot had been rejected due to not having a signature, and which is the normal process that when a ballot is received without a signature. However, then it becomes a provisional ballot where we send them the cure affidavit for them to complete, which we will get to more of those in a few minutes, where we send them the cure affidavit where they can return the affidavit and show ID to have their provisional absentee ballot counted. This particular voter decided to go to the polls and vote on election day. However, because they were in that provisional status, it showed on the poll pad that we had received their ballot rather than not being received. So we had the voter vote a provisional ballot because we weren't sure if the affidavit may be coming in the process. But as of 5 o'clock today, they did not return the affidavit. So their absentee ballot will remain in a canceled status, but the recommendation is to count their provisional ballot that they cast on election day. And with, even though there are 2 ballots there, we will of course only be counting one absent or one ballot for this voter.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count the 1 vote in Group E.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we accept the voter in Group E. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group F.
Group F, PR voters, again, voters whose registration was in question. We had 5 voters that stated that they had registered to vote when they got their driver's license. As you know, in the state of Georgia, it is an opt-out process. So anyone who goes to the Department of Driver Services is automatically registered to vote. However, with these 5 voters, we contacted the Department of Driver Services to check the voter's intent. And according to the Department of Driver Services, these 5 actually stated no, that they did not want to register to vote. Upon further investigation, we could find no other registrations to state that they were registered in Richmond County. So unfortunately, the recommendation is to reject their ballots.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject these 5 ballots.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the 5 voters in Group F. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, who was the second on that one?
Terrence?
So it was Mr.
That was
Finnegan
Marcia.
and then Ms. Brown. Were you the second?
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Brown was the second.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, my
No problem.
apologies for the interruption.
And that was Group F. So we'll move to Group G.
Group G, again, is another other category. We had one voter who was at the polls on election day. When they inserted their ballot into the scanner, they did not see the message that said your ballot had been cast. And so they insisted that they wanted proof that their ballot had been counted. After discussing with the voter and the office, we stated that the ballot counter did go up according to the poll worker. However, the voter wanted further proof. And so the recommendation was that allow that voter to cast a provisional ballot. And so the voter cast a provisional ballot on election night. And when we received all the paperwork back from the polling place, and as we audited all of the paperwork based on the number of ballots that were printed on the BMDs and the number of ballots that were scanned into the scanner, those numbers matched 100%. So therefore, although the voter did not see the words ballot cast on the scanner, it was determined that based on the audits and the numbers matching, that every ballot that was printed on the BMD was scanned into the scanner. So their vote was cast on the scanner on election day. So the recommendation is to reject their provisional ballot.
Yes.
Second, Mr. Chairman, but I do have a question.
Was there,
There's been
Wait,
no-
wasn't a
there
motion.
was an emotion first.
Oh, I apologize. Move to accept.
To reject.
You mean reject?
Excuse me, move to reject. I apologize. My wording is off. I'm sorry, but did we get it second? I'm sorry.
I second. Oh, wow.
Okay. Okay. Now, my question, Mr. Chairman, is to Director Bailey, was so how did that work? You had a ballot. I mean, the ballot was done, and then they were issued a provisional.
Well, what happened, Mr. Dix, is as the voter approached the scanner, as you do when you leave the poll, she put her ballot into the ballot scanner. She did not, however, see a message that customarily appears that says ballot cast. And so she didn't see that happen. And so she was concerned that while her ballot clearly went into the scanner, she was concerned that it had actually registered as a vote. And so after we discussed it, we decided, out of an abundance of caution and, in all fairness to her, just in case the scanner had misbehaved, she voted a provisional ballot. So at that point, there are 2 ballots out there possibly for this voter. So what we were able to confirm after the election by looking at the different documents that come in from the polls is that the scanner, the number of ballots scanned and tabulated in the scanner, and the number of ballots printed on the ballot marking devices were the same number. So she printed her ballot on the ballot marking device, and it was properly and duly scanned into the scanner. Because we were able to confirm that, then our option was to cancel the provisional ballot. Otherwise, she would have cast 2 ballots.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. That's. I'm sorry. I just wanted to be clear. I just wanted to be clear.
Sure. No, I think it's a great question. It's that's what provisional ballots are all about. They're fail-safe when things happened that can't be resolved immediately, and so it worked very well in this instance.
So my question, Mr. Chairman, is that the vote, her intent was recorded. Her intent was, yeah, okay.
It's my understanding that she intended to vote. She placed her vote into the scanner. The scanner logged and did what it normally does when a vote is put into the scanner. The numbers matched at the end of the day. And as such, we are now at the point where we have a motion and a second to reject her provisional ballot or his provisional ballot.
So, his or her. Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So all we did, all was done, Mr. Chairman, was to nullify the provisional ballot. Is that correct? We just nullified the provisional ballot.
Yes.
We are rejecting the provisional ballot, which means we will not count that ballot.
Okay, that's all, Mr. Chairman. I just want a clarification. That's why I no objection to doing that. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the voter in Group G.
Aye.
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 All opposed? I apologize. I didn't say all in favor. So Group H.
All right, Group H. Another fun other category. We had 4 voters who had voted and returned their absentee ballots, but still showed up on election day to vote.
Oh my.
All records indicated that their ballot had already been received, it had been validated, and it had counted. However, they wanted proof that their ballot had been received and validated and counted. And so we explained that we had received and validated and counted their ballots, but they still insisted on voting again or voting a provisional ballot. So they were allowed to vote a provisional ballot. However, our records show that their absentee ballot had been received, validated, and counted. So the recommendation is to reject their provisional ballot.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject these 4 provisional ballots.
Second.
Have a motion and a proper second to reject the voters in Group H. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Group I.
All right, Group I, PR voters. There were 41 voters who thought that they had registered in a timely manner, but their applications was not received before the voter registration deadline, or no application could be located. And of these 41, they did complete voter registration applications, so they will be registered after this election. However, either we did not have an application prior to the October 5th deadline date, or we do have applications from them, but they were submitted and submitted after the October 5th deadline registration date. So the recommendation is to reject these 41 ballots since the voters were not properly registered prior to the October 5th registration deadline.
Chairman, I move that we reject the 41 votes in category I.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the voters numbering 41 in section I. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Section J or Group J.
J, these were also PR voters, which is basically the only category that we can use for this type of category as far as questionable registration. There were 74 voters who voted in Richmond County, but all records indicate that they are currently registered in other Georgia counties. Many people unfortunately feel that although they are registered in the state of Georgia, that it is allowable for them to vote anywhere in the state of Georgia. But Georgia law does not allow that. You must vote in the county in which you are registered to vote. For these 74 people, we could not find any records or registrations where they were registered in Richmond County, or even attempted or intended to register in Richmond County. The belief is that for the majority of them, they happen to be here on election day, and so therefore they decided to stop at a polling place and vote. But again, the law does not allow for that. So the recommendation would be to reject these 74 ballots because the voters are not registered to vote in Richmond County.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject the 74 ballots, those registering from out of state,
Second.
or that out of.
Your reference to out of state, you mean out of county?
Out of county.
Out of county, yeah.
Been properly moved and seconded with clarification on the county that we reject the voters numbering 74 in Group J. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on to Group K.
In Group K, there were 5 voters that when the investigation was looked into, that they had been canceled, unfortunately, either back in 2017 during the NOAC 2G process. And if you'll recall, the NOAC 2G process is a process where when a voter is in an inactive status for 3 years, and then they do not have any contact with the elections office or any other office for that matter through 2 general elections, then they are removed. So we had this maintenance process in 2017, and we also had this maintenance process in 2019. Of those 5, they were removed during those processes. And as of October 5th, we could not find any current registrations or applications where they attempted to re-register to vote. after that removal maintenance process. So the recommendation would be to to reject their provisional ballots.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, if I may.
Yes,
Mr. Doss, now, these 5 voters at any point after 2017 and 2019 could have come back and re-registered. Had they done that, they would have been eligible to vote in this election, correct?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. And there was a big move, I know, after the 2019, where many groups were reaching out to voters that were on those lists during the list maintenance process. But yes, just because a voter is removed during the No Act 2G process, it is not like a felon that is removed. They are removed and they can re-register to vote at any time, either through any of the normal ways of registering to vote, whether it's online, whether it's by mail, whether it's through DDS. So yes, they can re-register at any time. And I believe that for these 5, they did fill out the provisional application, which is necessary. So they will at this point be re-registered. But unfortunately, on election day, they were not registered at that time.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject the 5 voter ballots in Group K.
Second.
been probably moved and seconded that we reject the voters in Group K numbering 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group L.
Group L, there were 7 voters who were canceled due to a felony conviction. The current process on felons now is, rather than an automatic cancellation when there's a felony conviction, what happens now is that the person is put into a challenge status for 30 days. They are mailed a letter giving them an opportunity to respond on whether or not the felony match, as it's called, the statewide process, if they are in fact the person that is being matched. For these 7, there was no contact from the person on whether or not the felony was correct or not. And so at that point, they are canceled. They are no longer challenged, they are canceled. There's also a process while they're in a challenge status that they can sign an affidavit at the polling place to state that that is not them. But for these 7, because they were already in a canceled status, a few of them had already been in a canceled status for 2 or 3 years. We have not received registrations from them to re-register them to vote. And as you know, that when a person is canceled for a felony, they can re-register to vote once they complete their sentence. It is not something that if you are canceled, that you are canceled for life. It is only you are canceled when you have a felony conviction, but once you've completed your sentence, you can re-register to vote. Unfortunately, for these 7 that were canceled, we do not show where they attempted to re-register to vote. And so therefore, their ballot, the recommendation is that their provisional ballot be rejected.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the voters numbering 7 in Group L. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, before we move to M, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we move to M, may I make the recommendation that we, in a future meeting, discuss with the executive director if we can do some kind of follow-up information on what process these type of voters have, or their options as far as getting this done in a timely manner. So we don't just have to reject that, because I think that's something that going forward, they really need to know about. And since we don't know at what point these folks are in fact notified that their rights have been restored. So maybe there's something we can do to assist that. So that's all I'm saying, Mr. Chairman. That's all I wanted to say before we went to him.
Mr. Chair, it's Lynn Bailey. Mr. Dix, I know this is a matter that's near and dear to your heart, and I'll be glad to bring forth an update at our next meeting, and we can go through. In the meantime, I can check to see if there have been any changes to the process. I know that last time we looked at this, which was, I think, following the 2018 elections, there really was no notification process put in place by the Department of Parole or Probation, Department of Corrections, to notify people when have completed their sentence that they've regained that right to register to vote. And so pretty much they're just left on their own to find that information, because we don't know either when their sentence has been completed. We know when someone registers to vote, that's one of the checks that's in place is through Department of Corrections to identify people who are currently still serving a felony sentence, but we don't know at the point in time that they've completed. So there is a little bit of a gap there, but I'm happy to look to see if there have been changes in that. And before we moved on, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that I got the second right on there. I have Mr. Dix on the motion, and then I think it was Ms. Barnes on the second.
It was.
Thank you so much.
We are in Group M.
All right, in Group M, there was one voter who had been sent an additional information letter back in 2018 due to an invalid address. And the process for voter registration is anytime there is a question about a person's voter registration application, whether it's an address, a name, a date of birth, a signature, missing driver's license, missing social security number, anything that might be missing from their record, they are sent a letter which puts them into a pending status, pending the required information, which, as you know, an address is required information because we have to verify that a person is a resident of Richmond County and that, in fact, their address is within Richmond County. On this particular voter, we were unable to determine their address, so we sent them a letter. And this was done again back in 2018. The process is that once we send them a letter, they have 30 days to respond to that letter. And if they do not respond to that letter, then their application is rejected. For this particular voter, we sent the letter to them back in 2018. They did not respond to the letter and their application was rejected. Since 2018, we have not heard from the voter, nor have we received any other updates from the voter to attempt to register or re-register or try to register since 2018. However, the voter did appear on election day and wanted to vote. And of course, we could find no registration for them. And so therefore we had them cast a provisional ballot. Further investigation, we did find where they did attempt to register to vote in 2018. And we did find where we had sent them the letter stating that we needed the additional information. And we also have a copy of the letter that we sent to them that we rejected their application and we sent them another voter registration application to try and correct what was incorrect on their original application. And we've had no contact with the voter since then. So the recommendation, because the voter is not registered to vote and had not registered to vote, would be to reject their provisional ballot.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject the one voter in Group M.
Second.
Second.
It's properly moved and seconded that we reject the voters numbering 1 in Group M. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Moving on to Group N.
Group N, these are absentee provisional voters. There were 34 voters who had mailed in their ballots, and they were put into a provisional status due to either they failed to sign the back of the ballot, the oath envelope on the ballot, or the signature that was on the oath envelope could not be matched to any signature that we had on file, whether it was their voter registration application or their absentee ballot application. When we are unable to match a signature, or when the voter fails to sign the oath on the back of the envelope, we contact the voter either through phone call, email, and in addition to a letter. There were 34 voters who responded to that information, and they were able to cure their absentee ballot. And so the recommendation would be to count those 34 ballots.
Move to accept, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Move to reject?
Accept.
Accept. Okay, I couldn't hear you. It's been properly moved and seconded to accept the voters numbering 34 in Group N. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Moving on to Group O.
Group O are also provisional absentee voters. According to state law, when a person registers to vote for the first time by mail, they must provide ID at the time of registration. If they do not provide ID, they are sent a letter letting them know that before they can vote, that ID needs to be provided, whether to us prior to Election Day or on Election Day. For these particular voters, they were voting absentee. And since they voted absentee, they still had to provide ID prior to their ballot being counted. So for these 7, they did provide the necessary ID prior to today. So therefore, the recommendation is to count their provisional ballot.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count the 7 votes in Group O.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we count the 7 votes in Group O. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on to Group P.
Group P, I referenced earlier when a voter who is noted during the statewide process to be a potential felon or have a potential felon conviction, they are put into a challenge status. There was one voter that was in that challenge status on Election Day. They were able to provide us information that although we received information that they had received a felony conviction, which they agreed that they had served a sentence. However, at the time they registered or re-registered to vote, they had completed their sentence. So therefore, the challenge was removed and the recommendation would be to count their provisional ballot.
Move to accept.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to count the 1 voter in Group P. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Travis.
Well, that completes the provisional report.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of comments, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
So if my math is correct, the board has moved tonight to count or accept 188 provisional ballots, and the board has rejected 138 provisional ballots. And we also have noted that there are an additional 45 military ballots that were received postmarked by Election Day and received by close of business today. So those will be the ballots that we'll be opening up and getting ready to tabulate tomorrow. Many of these provisional ballots, as we know, will have to be duplicated because they were cast out of precincts. So we'll be, going through all that tomorrow. I do find it interesting, though, as we went through the list, the one thing that was missing from the list as a reason code was no photo ID. We didn't have any person vote that didn't have photo ID. So that was good. Now, we did have several people that came into our office Monday and Tuesday who had ID cards made for them so they could go vote, and that's fine. But we didn't have any that we had to reject because of it. So that's good, because typically we do have at least a few. And lastly, I would just like to say that the report that we've been sharing on the screen tonight, we're going to get that posted on our website tonight before we leave here. So for people who are in attendance who would like to have a copy of that report, we'll put it out on our website. We can do that, right, Travis? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So we'll get it out there, and
it will be part of it will be like an agenda. Since we did not actually send a copy of this agenda, we will post it as part of our news information, and we'll put a copy of the agenda and a copy of this report in the news section on our website.
Okay, so if you just go to our website, which is www.augustaga.gov/vote, VOTE, scroll down below the banner, there's a news section, and that's where all this stuff will be linked in. For the board members, just a reminder also that we'll be starting up with this whole tabulation and adding to our unofficial results tomorrow morning at 9 out at the warehouse at 2029 Lumpkin Road. So those of you who are able to be with us tomorrow, we'd love to have you. And with that, I don't have any other comments unless there are any questions from any of you all.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I don't think there would be any. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for your attendance tonight, members.
Thank you.
Thanks for your hard work, Travis, and the remaining staff.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
And you as well, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, all. And maybe we'll see some of you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
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 Take care.
Thank you.